Welcome to Pods and Ears, the podcast for grain elevators, processors, and feed mills who are ready to turn their scattered data into a strategic advantage. I'm Rob Houston, co-founder of Innovative Grain, and over my 30 years in the commodities business, I've seen what helps grain operations thrive, and my goal is to help you do the same. In each episode, we're going to challenge the conventional thinking about how you view your data and your ROI. Whether it's unified data systems, business intelligence, or just making smarter decisions with what you already have, we're here to give you practical insights you can actually use. Let's get started. Welcome to the Pods and Ears podcast. I have a guest on with me today, Chris Seidels, who I've known for some time. Great guy, works for U.S. Farm Vision. How you doing, Chris?
I'm doing well, Rob. Thank you. Good morning.
Yeah, when you and I first met, well, not first met, but we met at the Country Elevator Conference in St. Louis sometime back, right?
Correct. Yeah, I believe that was last summer. It was a little steamy and warm that evening. So we're
That's right.
about ready to board a riverboat cruise.
Yeah, go on the Mississippi River. That was a great time. Shane Stiles from Gate 39 was with us. And, it was on that day that we kind of, talked about this partnership. I remember you and I had a discussion around federated data and what that was and how it could be used in the industry. You remember that?
I do, and it caught my ear, and I said, I think I know something about federated data, but share with me how you know federated data. So we were pretty close.
Yeah. Well, I had just come across it. I don't know how new of a term it is, but what federated data is for those that are listening is it's leveraging data in a way that protects everyone's privacy. So let's just assume that I'm a grain elevator. I'm buying grain from a lot of farmers, and I want to share some of that data with my client base. And this is just one example. There's several examples, but if I want to show how many loads I've received that day, what the average moisture content is, what the average test weight is, what the average form material. I could share that publicly to my grain customers, and it might give value to them, as they see their individual grades versus the average that I've received today. But I wouldn't ever show their individual data. So I wouldn't single anyone out. I would just be sharing the aggregate data. That's one example of federated data. There are many, but that's just one example of how a grain elevator might use federated data. Another example is to be able to show on a dashboard, here's the average forward contracted price received for October shipment versus today's spot price. And, I think that's pretty interesting too. So there's lots of ways that federated data can be shared in a way that respects the privacy of your client base.
Well said. No, absolutely. And it's really a preliminary analysis of what the production total or opportunity would be around cooperatives, elevators, draw area. So without, revealing who those growers are, who those grain growers are. So no, it's wonderful, wonderful, powerful tool.
For sure. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself, Chris. I didn't get a chance to talk about your whole background there.
Sure, happy to. So I started in data as a consultant back in 1995 is when my career started, but I didn't get to agriculture, the ag space, until 2008, and fell absolutely head over heels in love with everything agriculture. And from there, I just took off running and became um, a well-known agricultural data consultant in the circles here in the ag space, and provide strategic, innovative data solutions to many verticals in the ag industry. But really have a soft spot in my heart for grain, and trying to help solve problems and create new opportunities, conversions, if you will. We're in the business of conversion, and I would think they would be as well. And then what that means is expanding their their membership base. So finding new customers, and more importantly, knowing who their customers are with the farmographic data overlay. And we'll get into that a little bit later. But
Sure.
yeah, that's what I've been doing for many, many years now.
And how about U.S. Farm Vision? What can you tell us about U.S. Farm Vision?
Certainly. So that's backed by U.S. Farm Data, parent company, and U.S. Farm Vision was created last year to focus on the verticals, specifically to grain and all things in the grain industry. And we launched that in February of last year, and since then have created and developed innovative platforms and tools to help. Um, Elevators, co-ops, processors, market better, smarter, and faster.
Yeah, fantastic. And for me at Innovative Grain, there's just a natural fit with U.S. Farm Vision because what we do at Innovative Grain, I always say our first step is to connect with your grain accounting software API. That's kind of the core database of any grain elevator out there, whether large, big, or small. I've worked in this industry for 30 years, and that tends to be the most accurate database of any database within a grain elevator. So that's the first step. But then oftentimes the very next step is connecting to third party data, for example. By doing that, we're able to discover things like what market share we have within a particular geography, our share of wallet, if you're in the ag inputs business, our share of wallet, and then if you're just a grain buyer, maybe your share of production. And then, of course, as Chris mentioned, finding prospects if you're wanting to expand your area, maybe outside of a 30 or 50 or 75-mile radius, which farmers should we contact? And those are just some excellent ways I've used third-party data before.
Yeah, exactly. Typically, we start with the customer data, and that's under an exclusive non-disclosure. We don't share that proprietary information with anyone else. Our job is to enhance and enrich their data and reveal to them what their customer looks like from a farmographic perspective, meaning how many acres do they farm, total number of parcels, and then what their crop types are. And then we have a revenue indicator that we use where we take the size or the total number of acres times crop times the estimated yield.
Hmm.
And with that, we can reveal to them within a percentage of growers that they're not talking to, but that meet their demographic target.
Right.
So thus expanding their audience, increasing their sales.
And so most grain elevator managers know their territory pretty well. But what do you find when you actually show them this data for the first time if they've never used third party data before?
I get this often, and it starts with, "Well, I know my area pretty well," and I say, "Well, I can respect that, and I understand that, and as you should."
Hmm.
Um, but at no cost, I can show you if you just allow me access to some of your customer data, and then I can pull a radius count based on total number of acres and crop type, commodity type. I can show you and then suppress out your customers the net unique prospects, growers that you're not talking to, and invariably always get, wow, I didn't know that. And I'm
Right.
like, well, exactly. That's why we're here. We're here to help
Yeah.
you and expand your business. So
Yeah, that's a great story. And I was hearing you speak there, Chris, and also livestock data as well, right?
absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, very cool. So walk us through what field level visibility actually means. What can you see that traditional methods like FSA reports or driving around or farmer relationships can't show you?
Yep, absolutely. So just to understand all of this information is public record information, but what we do with it is what makes it proprietary. It starts with the USDA FSA reporting. We bring in county ag commission and reporting, banking information, mortgage detail, parcel information, integrating all of that, and it's over 200 sources of data that we use that's reported to put together a comprehensive list of farmers and ranchers. We have over 2.3 million records in our agricultural database. And so, with that, we can also cross pollinate our data with consumer attributed data, such as age, gender, even the spouse name. And why I bring that up is because spouses are very integral in the business of the farm. They typically run the books, and they definitely know the farm business, and have been known to be decision makers in the decision of the business of the farming operation. So within the farm householding record is what we call it, FHH, farm household record. We'll give you all this information, and we're now bringing in other data selects that are new and unique and helpful in making decisions.
Yeah, that's great. And let me ask you some of this because I've heard some of this before. How do you detect things like grain bins or irrigation systems or storage capacity from satellite data?
No, great question. So this year it's exciting. We've increased. We just had a new update, a latest update of our data set, and we've filled in a lot of gaps on the specialty crops, for example. But we've had a huge spike in mobile numbers and emails. So not only do you get the crop demographic information, crops, acres, gross from income, but we also have the phone numbers and emails so you can reach out to these farmers. But we're bringing in satellite imagery, which helps us identify bins on the property, bins on the land. We have flagged irrigation as well, so where they have irrigation, and again, we can confirm that through the satellite imagery. And on-farm storage, we're working on that as well. I've done studies, Rob, in the past with some of the largest grain bin manufacturing companies that where we did a study where how much is left in the bin. We use heat sensory, we'd use shading or shadowing, if you will, where we take the tip of the bin and then the width of the bin based on the shading. And it's only as good as the satellite imagery is as on a clear day, right? If it's a
Hmm.
cloudy day, we're not going to grab that picture. But what we were able to do is put together a calculator to give you uh, um, a determination or an estimate on what's left in the bin and how much the capacity of those bins are holding based on total number of acres and total number of production. So
Yeah,
we're hoping to get back to that. But for right now, that is on the release for this year. And we're proud to say that we're a player in that space.
fantastic. Well, and like I started a long time ago. Let's just leave it at that. But I remember when I first started as a merchandiser, this senior merchandiser who I have a lot of respect for still today, just handed me this Rolodex and said, "Get after it. Start with A's and go
Yep.
all the way to Z, and then when you get done, start back with the A's again and call who you missed." And I've even seen that more recently, from train elevators that have been in the business for some time, and they'll get an intern or something like that, and they'll just start them the same way they did. But you can imagine, how much more powerful that intern would be with this type of data. I mean, it's one thing if you're calling in, uh, the month of October, everybody has grain, right?
Right.
If you're calling in the Midwest, but if you're calling in, say, on February 26th, today, um, it would be quite helpful if you could call only those farmers that you had a really good idea of who had on-farm storage.
Yep.
Uh, Otherwise, you're just probably bugging someone, or and you're not being able to add value to them unless you're talking about new crop, and I respect that. But if you're needing old crop grain and you're bidding up for it, you want to call the people who have access to the on-farm storage, and that's one example, right?
No, absolutely. Very insightful. And then also with that, with the emails, we can do email deployment on their behalf. And what that does is it helps warm up the audience, knowing that
Mhm.
messages coming from ABC elevator, ABC co-op, um, and so it makes that call not as cold, if you will. So it warms up that introductory call.
Absolutely. Well, and I keep thinking about connecting multiple data sources. That's what we do at Innovative Grain. But when you've got this type of data and you also have the history of the way farmers had forward contracted, you can actually look at your data and say, what farmers had forward contracted with me in February previously. And that's another list,
Right.
that you can get your access to and things of that nature. So
Absolutely.
let's let's talk about this next segment that I wanted to chat with you about, from data to decisions. So there's a number of terms that we put out there. Market share is one, share of production is another, and share of wallet is a third one. So I want to make sure we cover each one of these. Um, and let me just start with market share. A lot of times, especially at river locations, I worked at a number of river locations on the Mississippi River, and you can't just draw, in most cases, you can't just draw a 30-mile radius around a river terminal,
Right.
because I'll give you an example. In southeast Missouri, uh, you know, I had a pretty significant drawing area, but it was all because I was on the Missouri side. It was west of the Mississippi River. I
Yes.
didn't draw much at all from the east side of the Mississippi River, because they had to cross the river, which meant crossing state lines, and they were always afraid that a cop on the other side would pull them over and, you know, harass them over a broken taillight or something like that.
Sure.
So, that's something that you can do as well, right, Chris? I mean, if we say, look, here's where I'm located, and I don't need a 50-mile radius, I need half of a 75-mile radius.
Yep, yeah, absolutely. We use all geo coordinates, geographical coordinates, from lat long, center point, all the way through, zip code, county, and city and state, of course, and then of course radiuses around those pinpointed areas. Typically, we start with an address, but if it's I won't call it obstruction, but if you have a waterway coming through, however you need however the cooperative needs that parsed, we will create that draw area accordingly. We literally started with illustrations. They would fax over draw areas, and we would
Sure.
take those and run with it. Now it's just easy to just plug in the geographical components, and boom, it'll just pop up. So
Oh,
yeah,
right.
we can target geographically any way they need it, any way they want it.
Yeah, and the other thing that U.S. Farm Vision does is it'll tell you how many corn and soybean acres are within whatever region you tell them. And then from there, you can look at how much you buy or have bought in the past, and you can get an instant determination of market share, because you know how much is produced
Yep.
based
Yep.
off of estimated yields and the number of acres that U.S. Farm Vision tells you are there for corn and for soybeans and for other commodities like wheat or canola, whatever the case may be. And then, that gives you your market share. And that's always been very difficult challenge for elevators to do, because they didn't always quite know, the acres. Um, so that's really powerful, and that's one of the first steps that, especially if you're wanting to improve your market share over time. And I get kind of geeky about this. I mean, if you're wanting to improve your market share, that's one thing. You need to make a lot of
Yeah,
phone calls. But if you're wanting to increase your share of production, making a lot of phone calls is not really the answer. You want to get very strategic, and you want to make fewer phone calls, but make them count. You might even make on farm sales calls versus a phone call. So with
absolutely.
share of production, right, you're looking
Yeah,
at each individual's farmer's production and then comparing how much you've bought from them to see what your share of production is, right?
that's exactly correct. Yep. Yeah, a lot of green managers sleep better at night knowing this, walking around with this valuable information, and really at the just at the tip, they can rattle these numbers off with our information, with our analysis, and it just helps them make better informed decisions.
Yeah.
That's really it.
And then share of wallet is very similar in that, you know, you look at the number of acres, you multiply that times an estimated yield, and then you multiply it times an average cash price, and then you have gross revenue. And if you're an ag input salesman, you can you already know how much the farmers bought from you, and you know how much gross revenue is there. So you've got an instant view of what your share of wallet is if you're an ag input
Correct.
salesman.
That's correct. Yep. Good way to differentiate the production versus the wallet. So
Yeah.
very important.
Now, I've got a question here that I wanted to ask, kind of related to kind of competitive advantage. When your neighboring elevator is making strategic moves based on better data, what does that mean for the elevator that's still relying on gut feel and relationships alone?
Wow. Yeah. Good question. My response would be, how does shooting from the hip analysis and marketing work out for you?
Yeah, right.
Um, you can go on gut all you want, but the data really is the fact. It brings in more truth to the reveal, if you will, to as you're building trust with new prospective growers and customers. I would say, and Rob, you brought this up to me. It's nothing is 100% when it comes to data. So, but to be more directionally accurate is a term that
Hmm.
you used, which really made sense. If we're off by a few acres or off by a few bushels, that doesn't matter. And the point is that you're getting a new customer and you've got a pretty good idea of their potential.
That's right.
So, um,
Well, and
I would rather have the data, be armed with the data and my intuition, um, and their experience, right? Or these guys understand their
sure,
role in the business, and so, but the data really gives them that extra um, insight into making a better
absolutely.
decision.
And when I think of this question, Chris, because everybody's got a boss at some point, at some level, right? And I'm imagining myself as the manager of a cooperative, and you've got a board, that is, asking you questions, monthly,
Certainly,
quarterly,
yeah,
and if the goal of some of these boards is to how can we grow the business, how can we increase our revenue, how can we increase our market share, et cetera, using that gut feel of like, I'll try harder, I'll make more phone calls, I'll do on-farm sales call, I'll do more of those, we'll improve
right,
our customer service. All that stuff is helpful, but those are tactics. I mean,
yeah,
you can't really develop a strategy unless you have the data.
that's it. That's exactly it. Yep, I was just thinking strategic versus desperation.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it,
Right.
for sure. Um, well, we at Innovative Grain work with ag grain accounting software companies like AgVision. We've connected with their API. They're great to work with. Tyler Bottoms, the manager there, is just superb.
Yes.
I've known him for, gosh, 20 years, I think, and knew his dad even longer than that. Um, but that's kind of the first step, and then connecting with U.S. Farm Vision is a perfect catalyst and to take it to that next strategic level. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the trusted advisor angle. How can grain elevators use data insights to add value back to their farmer customers instead of just using this data to buy more bushels? And that gets to what Chris and I were talking about earlier as it relates to a strategic um, sales call. I mean, if you understand, it's one thing to understand that the farmer has storage,
Right.
but you can't just use the data alone. You've got to be curious. You've got to ask questions. And when I say curious, I mean it in a way that adds value to your farmer customer, because you can have a farmer that's the same age, the same size, same amount of acreage, the same amount of bid capacity, but one may have absolutely no debt whatsoever, and another guy with the same demographics, the same size, the same setup. could be heavily leveraged. And you can bet that their strategies of how they sell their grain and when are very different.
Absolutely.
And it makes their mindset about selling grain very different. So, leveraging this data is part of it, but it positions you in a way to have a really in-depth conversation with the producer, and ask those questions, about their break-even analysis, their cash flow needs, and really building yourself as a trusted advisor because you want that farmer to stay in business year in, year out, right?
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah, good point, Rob. And one thing, I'll just take it what I do when I prospect. This particular cooperative has 10 assets, and I'm reading that off of their website. But I don't go into a call saying, so you have ten locations. Is that correct? And I really ask the questions. Tell me a little bit about your assets, how you're currently marketing, and
Mhm.
how you're currently assisting and serving your customer base today. Be very careful with the data in going into this. It's good to be armed and informed, but don't barrage them with the checking the box arrows, as you're
Right,
going through. Be very conversational and get them to talk a little bit more about their farming production,
right,
their meat production. That is building trust. You're building a relationship. And as you're going through this, and then you start talking about, well, thank you. That was informative. You're helping me come up with the right data prescription, as I call it. Data RX was a company I used to have, and I'm that's exactly what we're doing is trying to come up with a solution, but we're only as good as the information they give us. And if I'm going in as a know-it-all, I know everything about your farm. I don't. They know
mm,
their farm pretty darn well.
yeah,
So my job is the job of a sales rep is to get them to talk a little bit more about their farm. They're very proud of it, right? They work
right,
very hard, and we're in this to try to help them make money, right?
sure.
So
Well, and I've often flipped the script as I'm trying to build trust with a farmer and said, look, here's how much storage capacity I have in my grain elevator, and I'm booked out, so far, and I really want to create an environment where we're creating mutual value. The farmer understands I have to make money too.
sure,
But no farmer wants to be taken advantage of or scalped or anything like that. So
exactly,
there's ways to share data. Again, that kind of federated data mindset of,
yeah,
look, I would, it would be better for me if you have the capacity to store this grain one more month. Then I'm bidding a higher basis level because I need it in March more than I do in February, or whatever the case may be, right? And
exactly,
as
yep,
long as you've got a standard margin built in for both February and March, if the farmer needs to sell in February, you'll take it. But I've found that most farmers are, wow, I mean, if you could pay me a little bit more and cover the cost of carry and things like that, and that'd be better for you. Yeah, let's sell it in March. So leveraging data both ways is just that solid way, I think, of adding to and adding value to and building trust.
yep, agreed.
So, Chris, what's next for U.S. Farm Vision? Where's the platform headed?
Well, we just launched a few weeks ago. We're very proud to we launched a front end web user interface, and this allows you access to the entire U.S. farm data set. Um, and then once our customer license a data segment, a data sample, or data set, if you will, they can also sort and query not only the entire farm data set, but their list and then their customers. We can put their customers in there. So, what this does is help them access um, uh, within their area, their targeted draw area, where those growers are, what they look like. And you can pull by geography, acres, crops, operational revenue. And then you can also plug in a radius. So they can drop in the address and pull a radius 15, 30. If you're in Texas, maybe 75, 100 miles. So we're really, really happy about that. The nice thing too, Rob, is that you can save queries You can build a query template. So every time you go back and run again, you don't have to rebuild your query. It's
Mm,
saved and ready
nice.
to go for you based on the demographic selects. And then it's all exportable. So just at a touch of a button, you can download that list and put it into the hands of those that are out there, boots on the ground, if you will, trying to
Mhm.
sell this. And it's you can plug into CRMs as well, HubSpot, Salesforce, on down the line. So
Yeah,
we have
that's
API, sorry, and so we can plug into portals and CRMs, ERP systems. So
very
really
good.
excited about that.
Yeah. Well, and I talk about AI quite a bit, and I've been in this industry for 30 years. I've got friends all across the industry, not just across the Midwest, but around the globe. And when you think of the consulting firms out there like McKinsey and Accenture and
Sure.
Deloitte, I mean, what the grain majors are working on right now is enabling a merchandiser to come in on a Monday morning or a Wednesday morning and say, hey, who should I call based off of data and why? Rank a list of the top 20 customers that I need to call. Show me their history. Show me why you ranked them as such.
Yep.
And I'm going to get started on my day. And wow, I mean, it looks at all the history. It looks at the demographics. It looks at the patterns of selling. It looks at basis levels. It has access to all that data and it can faster than any human could prioritize a list for you. And so that's kind of one of the things that I see moving forward. I know the grain majors are working on it. I don't know how many of them are there yet, but I know they're working on it. And again, you've heard me say this, Chris, many times. There is no winner. There's no loser. There's no second place. In this business, you're either ahead of or behind your competition. And that's one of the things that, if you want to try to stay ahead of your competition, leveraging data and being strategic is, you know, two things that you need to take a strong look at.
Absolutely. And if I may just add to that, Rob, no, that's really good. The power of doing a customer profile, looking at their customer attributes based on demographics, then we can score them by A, B's, and C's. A is your best. This is your best customer. Um, B is, he has some business, but opportunity is there. C is unknowns. And C, once the C comes through the door, we quickly make that into an A. But and you shared this with me too. If you look at you list your customers, you score them. Yeah, A's are, your top tier customers are pretty easy. But if you look at, your mid B's and C's, but you're only getting 25% of their business today, but they have more land, they have more production than your number one. That's your growth. That's your growth potential. And that's what
Absolutely.
this data, with the collaboration of Innovative Grain and US Farm Vision, that's what this data reveals is new target areas. And it flips the script right there.
Yeah, I
So
totally agree. Well, Chris, kind of wrapping up here for the grain elevator manager that's listening who wants to start exploring this, what's the very first step? What does initial engagement with US Farm Vision look like?
uh so really first rule of engagement for us, is um, let us know your areas that you're targeting, where your locations, your assets are set up, and at no charge, we can run you an analysis based on the federated data. Right? We haven't done anything yet. Right? There's been
Yeah,
no exchange of monies, but what we'll do then is quickly turn around an analysis and let you know where your potential is.
yes,
um, that's really the quick and easy way to get started, and then go into how we can help you leverage this data by your marketing outreach, your strategic efforts, and then meet and exceed those goals and help you grow your business.
yeah, fantastic. And as it relates to an elevator sharing their data, you've got an NDA that you can put in place to give them confidence that that's okay.
Absolutely. Mutual NDAs, so we work with them every day. And
Yeah.
so, again, we don't share your data with anyone else. That's not our business.
Right.
Our job is to enhance your customer data. We never change your data, the customer data. We add to it and we
Yeah.
enrich it with the U.S. Farm Vision demographic.
And how about connecting with you as an individual? Do they follow you on LinkedIn? What are some of the ways that people can connect with you?
Yep, you can go to my LinkedIn page, Chris Seidels. You can go to US Farm Vision on LinkedIn as well. And then we have a website, www.usfarmvision.com.
Okay. Yeah. So, for those of you listening out there, you hear me say this. Certainly, I'd like it if you'd share this podcast with others. You can subscribe to Pods and Ears on LinkedIn as well. You can visit usfarmvision.com and innovativegrain.ai to learn more. So please reach out to Chris or myself directly for a no pressure conversation about your operation. We're here to help. We want to create mutual value as well. And we love doing what we do and would be happy to help. So thank you all for listening, and hope you tune in again next time. Thanks a lot, Chris.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Rob. Much appreciated.
Thanks for listening to Pods and Ears. If you found value in today's episode, please take a moment to like, download, and share it with others in the grain industry who might benefit. Your feedback matters to me, so let me know what topics you'd like to hear more about or what challenges you're facing with your data and operations. You can find us on LinkedIn, YouTube, and at www.innovativegrain.ai. Until next time, keep putting your data to work.